Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome back to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and we got a very special guest today. His name is Glenn Sturm, and this guy's got quite a story. He's an active survivor, a four-time best-selling author, and a compelling storyteller, knows just how to reach people in a crisis. His story is more than a survival story. He's got over 30 years of military service and honors from University of Florida Law. He brings an unflinching honesty to his story that aligns with us so much. He spent over a decade undergoing continuous chemotherapy. But it looks like we've got a winner in our circle. Glenn, I don't want to get too much more into this. Let's bring you to the show. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Never been better. It's a beautiful day here in Jackson, Wyoming.
I hear it's a little chilly out there.
Just a little bit, but it's a great day for a fire in the fireplace.
I love it. I love it. Well, we were talking a little bit ahead of time, and you've got quite a compelling story. I'd like to just jump right on into it.
Well, it all started on January 21st, 2009, and I've been on continuous chemo since then. But what happened was I was on my way to the University of North Carolina to give a presentation, and I was very much looking forward to it. I love college basketball, and that night there was going to be a University of North Carolina versus Clemson basketball game, and I had never been to an all-ACC game, so I was looking forward to that. And my cell phone started ringing, and I was just getting ready to get on the plane at gate B13. And I should have thought before I answered the phone when I was at gate B13, but I didn't. So I answered the phone, and in those days, if you didn't recognize the number, you didn't assume it was spam. And this wasn't. So it was a doctor who I had run a little bit with and done triathlons with and everything else. And she said, "Glenn, we got the biopsy results back, and they're positive for lymphoma." And I said, "What? And what biopsies?" Well, they had done the biopsies about 6 weeks in advance. And, I started thinking about this. People have been doing biopsies on me for like 8 or 9 years, and nothing ever came out of it. And so I said, okay, I ran, on my marathon training with a bunch of MDs. And I just thought it was somebody put her up to a bad joke. And I said, okay, who put you up to this? And she said, "Glenn, nobody did. It's legit. You've got cancer.
Whoa.
I need you back here tomorrow for additional tests. And with the cancer you've got, it's very rare, and we're going to have to refer you someplace if it's confirmed." Well, this time it didn't take 6 weeks to get the results back. And because I had a very a wonderful gentleman who I knew, who was the chief medical officer of American Cancer, after 3 weeks of not being able to get an appointment with anybody in Atlanta, he got me an appointment with the world's leader in my cancer at Smilow Cancer Center, Yale University.
Wow.
So I went up to see her right away, and she looked at me for about 10 minutes, and she'd seen the images and stuff. She said, "Glenn, you've got T-cell lymphoma, and we're going to put you on oral chemo today." And so that was the start of my over 6,300 days of oral chemo now, and over 530 days of IV chemo. So it's been a little process to go through, and had a whole bunch of surgeries, had a whole bunch of side effects that people didn't know about, and learned a whole lot, and things that I'm teaching people. My first book was called Cancer Set Me Free.
Mm-hmm.
And my newest book, which will be out in about 6 weeks, is called A New Hope, because of the new results from a lot of the tests that have been going on in the past 3 years that have shown basically a materially more effective way of treating cancer. So that's kind of the long and short of it. I've had 55 surgeries, which is kind of crazy. I had 5 detached retinas in my left eye and a torn retina in my right. side effects, and I had liver failure, which I had to figure out because it didn't make medical sense what was going on, but it was a side effect of a drug, and was
What chemo drugs are you taking?
well. Now I'm taking romidepsin and Zolenza,
Okay.
and they're not as bad as the Tagretin and the Ontac was in this with side effects. It is the longer there's knowledge about the medical community and the interrelationships of the drugs, it's amazing how people are figuring things out quicker. So, for instance, I had a detached retina one day, and they did surgery on me that night to fix it. And 3 months later, I had another detached retina in the same eye.
Wow.
And then I said, okay, we got to find a better doctor than the one who made
Yeah.
the mistake the first time, which it wasn't his fault, by the way. And so I went to the Cincinnati Eye Institute, and the wonderful doc there said, yeah, you do have a detached retina in your left eye, but you've also got a torn retina in your right eye. And we're going to
Whoa.
fix that one right now. And they lasered it while I was sitting there. And then I had to come back about 4 days later for the surgery on my left eye. And then about 120 days after that second detached retina, I had a third and then a fourth. And I said, okay, something's going on here that
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
make
This
sense.
isn't just happening. There's something causing it.
Right. There's something causing it. Um, and so I'm going to come back to that in a second. But about a year before that happened, my AST and ALT levels were starting to double. Uh, I had an IV chemo that I was having for 3 days every 3 weeks with no end in sight. And so we knew every 3 weeks my AST and ALT level, liver enzymes were doubling, and they couldn't figure out what was causing it. And so, they affiliated with Oxford University to try to diagnose it, and the parties couldn't do it. They did liver biopsies. They couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I finally said, okay, I'm gonna have to figure this out. So I went back, and for a 2 year period, I tried to identify every variable in my life and what could have changed. And so then I started running correlation coefficients, and then doing correlation coefficients with 30, 60, and 90-day lag times in them. And I found the answer, I thought. And there was a 0.96, which means basically a 96% correlation between a certain medicine they put me on. They took me off a leave and put me on that, and the liver enzyme issue. So I was all happy and think I was smart, and
Right, right.
went back to Yale, and they then explained to me the difference between correlation and causation.
Exactly.
And so I looked at them and I
Yeah.
said, well, that you may be right, but I'm not going to take that drug anymore.
There you go.
So we're going to find out if there's a causation.
Yep.
Well, 3 weeks later, the liver enzymes had stabilized.
Nice.
Three weeks after that, they'd started to go down, and 3 more weeks they were back to normal.
Nice. Nice.
So
Good.
so we had causation and correlation. So
Exactly.
we ended up doing a report on it, and a black box warning label was added to the drug. And the company was amazing who had developed the drug. They were just spectacular and helped working with. So I had that experience before I had the retina problems. And I went back to the same thing, and it turned out that 120 days before I started having the detached retina problems, they put me on a new chemo agent. And I mean, people don't realize it, but there's always something that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you don't always can predict it. You can't predict what everybody else is doing, how they live their lives, how much they've worked out, how much they haven't worked out, or everything. And so you have to start looking for what could be the causes. And we identified that it was probably that chemo agent. And I went off of it, and I haven't, knock on wood, right here. I haven't had a detached retina since I stopped taking that chemo agent.
Wow.
So, I mean, I've had uh, very bad intestinal surgeries because of perforations of the intestine. that was related to another medicine. And I'm on 31 medications a day. You wouldn't know it by being around me. But you have to work through the process. And the one thing that happened to me early in the process that I have to credit with another human being, another regular Joe, he wrote this wonderful article. I wish I could find it. And he had my same cancer, and he died after 6 months. And he wrote before he died this wonderful article that said he was so happy for the time he had. And I'm sitting here saying, the guy died. I mean, how can you be happy about that happening? And what he said in the article was he had a bunch of friends who had died in Vietnam, friends who had died of heart attacks, and friends who had died in a car wreck. And he said he was blessed because he had 6 months to make things right. And I wrote at the time, I said, I don't know how long I'm going to get, but I'm not going to let cancer define me. And I'm going to try to make the world a better place every day I live. And so today I'm a best-selling author. I'm an astrophotographer of some note. And 100% of the revenue from all of my photography goes to children's health or cancer-related causes. Nothing's reimbursed. I mean, 100%, 100 cents on every dollar that comes in goes to support those causes. And now, why did I choose that? Well, when I go to my Smilo infusion number 7, I'm on the 7th floor of infusion, I have to walk by the Children's Cancer Infusion Center every time. And when you see the moms and dads and the pain they're in, and you see those little innocent children, and they don't know what's going on, but they know it's not right, but they know their mom and dad are there. You've got to find a way to help, and you've got to find a way to give back. And so one of the rules I have is to put a smile on somebody's face every day. And I've got a test to make it more difficult at times. But if you put a smile on somebody else's face, it's going to end up putting a smile on your face. It just is. And people say, well, why are you saying that? And I said, it's really simple. It's going to. And I've tried it out for a long time, and it happens every day. When somebody gets a big smile on their face, they're thankful. Now, the challenging part of it is have you ever had a phone call with somebody at a call center and you can tell they've had a hard day? Well, you're not going to see them smile, but you can hear them smile. So
absolutely.
What can you do to help them smile? And every time you do that, you've made somebody's life better. And if you make it a conscious effort every day, just one small bite at that apple to make somebody's life better by giving them a smile, it does wonderful things, not just for them, but also for yourself. And it makes you smile. How can you not smile when you see that somebody's had a day like that and they're now smiling? So that's the one of the rules. And then there's one other one, I'll tell you a little phrase. And that was my daughter taught me. And she said, Daddy, the ambulance is gone.
I love it. I know the ambulance. That was something that we were throwing around probably 25 years ago. And I'm going to send out the ambulance for you. I love
Exactly. Well, my daughter had been in a car
it.
wreck that wasn't her fault, but she had totaled basically a brand new car, and I just kept on asking questions about it, and she finally looked at me and said, Dad, the ambulance is gone. Come on, give it a rest. And so that happened about 25 years ago, and so I still remember that. But there's one more thing, and this is very pertinent to what we're talking about, is we must all give up hope for a better yesterday. When you get that phone call that says you've got cancer, so many people fall into the trap of letting cancer define them and not realizing that they can't control yesterday, but they can control the future.
October
And
14th, 2024. That was my day.
yep, and I mean, we all have the date, January 21st, 2009.
Yep.
And if you'd have told me then, I'd still be on chemo today. And I've got another IV session in 2 weeks. I'd have said you're nuts. But
You have a port, don't you?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't know how you could go through all those IV sessions without a port.
Well, that's right. Yeah, it's right here. They haven't had to change it yet either, which is astounding.
Nice. Yeah, you got a good one. I do too.
And so you flush it regularly, and
Yeah,
they used to put heparin in you. They don't do that anymore. They just flush it out.
right.
But it's just one of the things I always tell people is they say, how can you have such a positive attitude every day? How can you write so much and plan your photography trips and all those things? And I said, I leave cancer in Connecticut. When I leave Yale after getting my treatments and the tests and all that stuff, I just leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think about it at home. I do think about having to take the meds that I have to take every day,
Sure.
but that's a mechanical process. So it's kind of, I live in this great state of Wyoming that doesn't have a state income tax.
Nice. I wish I did.
Well, so I went back and started thinking about it. And I said, well, how much am I losing from my chemo treatments? Well, it's like, just under or just at 10% of the year.
Right.
And so, okay, well, that's kind of like an income tax.
Yeah.
So since I don't have one, that's my tax.
Right.
It's my chemo tax instead of an income tax.
There you go.
And so you celebrate life, you go on hikes, you hug your family, and that's what it's all about. I mean, again, forget the history, okay? You can't if you dwell on it, you're going to hurt yourself. Put smiles on people's faces, celebrate life, and hug folks. And
100%.
that's the way you treat cancer.
It's funny. That's one of the reasons I do this podcast is to reach people and bring awareness. I actually have a segment that I'm doing from a prison in California, and we call it Healthy Living Through Adversity. And just yesterday, I interviewed a guy who's got stage 4 cancer, and they wrote him off. And the guy's got the spirit, he's got the faith, he's got all the pieces to keep going. We had a fantastic conversation, and I believe he's going to be around for many years to come.
Well, here's the other thing that most people don't realize. The staging of cancer has changed. It used to be when you were told you had stage 4, it basically meant get your affairs in order.
Yeah, you were done. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got growths on my lungs and on my spine. And last year, my most recent surgery, they had to remove a tumor on L3, which is impacting the root nerve. But that's the only thing that's ever grown that caused real problems. But it used to be that by definition, this is stage 4.
Right.
But if it's not growing, how could it be stage 4?
Right.
So one of the things they need to do is restage the definitions of the cancer.
I agree.
Because, like if you got a breast cancer or brain cancer, it's different. I mean, because the mortality rates of those haven't changed much. They're reduced by a new technique by about 15, 16%.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas mine has gone down by 70%, the mortality rate.
Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber-only episodes that we offer to the supporters, and for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
Now I'm curious. I mean, I have so many things we could talk about. I'd love to maybe have you back on to go deeper into this because I learned so much as well. My journey was I had a squamous cell carcinoma, a giant grapefruit sticking out of my neck, and a tumor in the back of my tongue, and it was ready to start spreading all over. And I came upon some people and some information that were critical in me reversing this thing. And I'm curious, what's your diet like?
Well, it's okay.
Well, we just lost your vocal or your audio.
Is that better?
Yeah, there you go. You're back.
Okay. Um, the uh, the maybe it was a prophetic mistake because you asked about my diet. Um, it's a better than average diet, but the other thing is I weigh 148 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
and when I had the spine surgery, the folks at Mayo Clinic up in Rochester, because of all my medical conditions, they were worried about surgical surgical issues, and the head of anesthesia for the hospital did my interview, and he said, "Your weight is perfect." And I said, "Yep." And he said, "And you work out 6 days a week?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And so we talked about things for a bit, but maintaining a proper weight and digestive processes are critical. But there's
Sure.
something else I'm going to bring up, and that's called the multidisciplinary integrated cancer care teams. And there has been a substantial change in the prognosis for people with cancer who are being treated by people in a multidisciplinary integrated cancer care team. Now, what is a team? Well, in my definition of it, it includes about 30 different professionals. Now, you may only need 4 or 5 of them, but you're going to probably need all of them at times. And it starts with the oncologist and it may end up with a music therapist at the extremes. But you also, I think the thing that's so important is a psychiatrist. Well, I was sent to a psychiatrist when I was right after I was diagnosed because my mentor had died, my dog had died, my dad
Wow.
died, and I got served with divorce papers.
Wow.
So they all thought I needed to have a psychiatrist. Well, when you look at it and you look at the average responses for, what do you do for cancer fatigue syndrome? That's what happens to you when you get tired during chemo.
Sure.
Well,
I do it well.
the whole historically, what they did was they told you to exercise a bit more and get more rest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the NIH has published their studies that exercising a little bit more and getting more rest doesn't do anything. So they started studying what does do something. Well, this fully integrated team does something. Well, so when I had it, my first member of my team, besides my oncologist, was my psychiatrist, and I started having really bad problems with falling asleep in the middle of the day. And so I started talking to her about it, and she, after a while, diagnosed me with narcolepsy as a side effect of the chemo. And so they wrote me a prescription that kept me from falling asleep. Well, that also gave me energy. And then they figured out that I was ADD. Well, maybe they should have known that when everybody called me Taz. And they gave me these, all these great Christmas presents with the Taz. And well, she was number 2. Number 3 was a physical therapist who my oncologist got the insurance companies to pay for 4 to 5 days a week, 52 weeks a year for 10 years. And that kept me in shape. And it just started ticking on there, an acupuncturist. And I developed my own team before there were teams. Well, today, the overall survival benefit has ranged from a 4% reduction in mortality rates to a 90% reduction in mortality rates.
Nice.
And the average is 70%. So, if that's the case for the multidisciplinary, what's happened to the average silo-based practitioners? There's been no change in their mortality rates.
Right.
So what it tells you is, and we could talk about this for hours.
Sure.
Um,
Oh, I built a team myself as well, and it wasn't, the medical center that I was with, they had a team of a few different oncologists, a surgeon, a radiologist, and a medical oncologist, and even an integrative oncologist. But I built a team of dozens of people besides that, and ultimately found my way.
well, I mean, since we're on the topic, I'm going to pull up who my team is,
Nice.
and if you wanted to, I'll send you a copy of this.
Yes, absolutely.
But you can post it on your website. But
Yeah.
okay, let me just hit open. And so this is we're going to get here. Okay, so who's the complete team? Well, you've got your medical oncologist, the psychiatrist, the surgical oncologist. Now, the next one is important. I mean, I did correlation coefficients. Well, most people in America can't do a correlation coefficient. But there's a doctor who can, and that's called a neurologist. And they're exceptionally good at identifying drug interaction problems and multidelirium that's caused by drug interaction problems. So I think you need that person. You need a pathologist. And then as we go further, okay, you need an oncology nurse, a nurse practitioner. And then sounds like you were too, but I was my own guide or navigator.
Oh yeah,
You
100%.
were, and you have to have one because that's the person who may be the most important person in the process because they're the one who solves the problems from
Right.
scheduling to getting you the right care that you need.
Yep.
So then you need a physical therapist. You may need an OT, an occupational therapist, a speech pathologist, a dietitian, a pharmacist. Well, my pharmacist has saved my life 3 times.
Nice.
My resting pulse rate's 50-ish.
Whoa.
And they were going to do some cardiac tests on me. And so they had to have my pulse rate below 70. And so they gave me medicine to get my pulse rate below 70, but my resting's 50 or 48 recently. Well, it would have shut my heart down.
I was going to say, you don't have much left to go after that.
No, you don't. And so he knew about that. He knows me. And having a pharmacist that's dialed into you really well can really
Huge.
help a lot.
Huge.
And so then the next group is a social worker, just a regular psychologist, a genetics counselor, which is more and more important when you're matching up, different types of, medications with your genetic background.
Sure.
A palliative care specialist, hopefully not a hospice care specialist.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully that's the last
Maybe.
one you need. Yeah.
Yeah, but you need a chaplain or a spiritual advisor.
Sure.
And then acupuncture, which worked marvelous things for me.
Nice.
Oncology, massage, yoga and meditation advisor, and maybe a music therapist. And that's my list. And
Love it.
I've got 25 footnotes that back up these things.
I love it.
And so, again, if you think about it, I've had my energy level since the first few months of my treatment. So I'm finishing my 17th year with having the medications that I needed to have a normal life. But I do, and I've written in the past 2 years. I've written 5 books. I've got my first novel. It'll come out in May.
Nice.
And then I've got 3 eclipse books, and we're going to shoot the next eclipse. My team is August 12th in Spain. So
these are photography books, the eclipse books.
Well, the first one was Cancer Set Me Free.
Right.
The second one was Warriors Hate War.
Okay.
That's the history of the U.S. military since World War II. Then there's 3 books already been published on eclipses, and then A New Hope, the promise of fully integrated, multi-practice, integrated cancer care teams is the one I'm releasing in April, which goes through my history where I was almost killed by the doctors not talking to each other.
Yeah.
And then I've got my first novel, which is The Green Murphy Secession, which comes out in May. It's book 1 of a 6-book series.
Wow.
multi-family, multi-generational book starts during World War II. First three books end when President Trump bombs Iran. And
Wow.
then the last three books are the Third World War.
Oh boy.
And so, then I've got, the Eclipse, another Eclipse book, which will come out after Spain. And then next year's, there's the Moroccan/Egyptian eclipse, which will be pretty interesting. So, basically, I always have something I'm planning and working on.
I love it.
And
That's critical as well. When I don't know that you really got into it. I mean, you've been talking about it, but without identifying it so much as the purpose. When you have a purpose in life, every day I wake up, I can't wait to get out of bed and get at it. But I've got purpose. I've got things I got to do, things I want to do. And that's huge, I think. I think a lot of people that go through cancer, they, like you say, they identify with their disease rather than, with their purpose in their life. And you get lost sometimes when you don't feel good. And sometimes people just, get stuck in a whirlpool. And when you can keep a purpose-filled life, and you clearly have that, like you said, you leave it behind. You leave it at home when you're out there, living your life. So that's powerful.
well, let me give you a little bit more on this multidisciplinary cancer teams. So lung cancer, as a result of this, 38,000 participants in a study, 40% reduction in death rate. Okay. 5-year survival rate increased 1/3. It's just staggering. So then the renal cell, kidney, the survival rate was 33.2 months. It's now 73.7 months.
Wow,
Uh,
doubled.
doubled. So breast cancer, this is one of the ones that hadn't done as well, but it's gone from 42-ish to 57-ish, 15%. Head neck, which is like,
That's what I had.
terrible. Okay, well, it's a 16% improvement in survival rates. So then liver cancer is an 18% reduction in mortality rates. But then you go to the overwhelming thing, and that is the Thompson study. And it's called Williams and Thompson. And they studied 179 studies involving 56,187 patients. And it found that every study that examined reports materially reduced risks of death for people who are being treated by multidisciplinary teams compared to those with silo-based teams.
And it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. It's not strange that is the case.
Well, think about it. How often is it that people are treating a symptom and not a cause?
Oh, most of the time.
Right. So I always said that when was diagnosed with cancer, cancer wasn't what was causing the problems, it was I was causing the problems. Because I was so focused on my big deals and the business success that I didn't worry about me and my family
Right.
enough. And when I flipped that around, it changed things. My daughter, who met with my oncologist at the very beginning, was told I had 2.5 years to live.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm in my 18th.
That was a lot longer than that ago.
Yeah, I'm in my 18th year of treatment now.
I love it.
So, it's just don't let cancer define you. Find something to be purposeful about. But you just said that. And, it just changes everything. And then when you can help somebody else, just little things,
It's huge.
it's huge because it
Yeah,
makes you feel fulfilled.
exactly. Well, that's my mission now. I mean, I have 2 to 3 people a week reach out to me that, in fact, I want to share with you, they published my case study in a cancer journal, and it's featured in PubMed now. And the things that I did were exceptional, and they worked exceptionally well. But I'd like to send you that article
I'd love to see it.
so you can see it. And I would love to talk more to you directly or on the air or both. We have really just barely scratched the surface here.
Well, I'm always available, and I'm working my tail off on the new book
I love it.
because it is so important because there's no national news on this issue.
I
So
get it.
you would think, well, I taught corporate finance at the graduate school level.
Okay.
Okay, so if you had a drug that reduced the average mortality rate for all cancers by 70%, and there was a pharmaceutical company that had developed that drug, how much would its market cap go up? How much would the value of that company go up? It's hundreds of billions of dollars and maybe $1 trillion.
Sure.
Okay, well, this isn't a drug. This is just teamwork.
Right.
Okay, and so it's important that we get this information out. It's important that people see how to do it and the ways to do it.
I'm right there with you, man. Everything you're saying, I'm walking in lockstep with you, and I would love to anything I can do to help get this message out. Aside from what I'm doing here, I'm down.
Well, it's wonderful. If you would like me to come back when the book's released, I'll do it in a flash.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll have PowerPoint presentations then, but we can just do it. You'll be authorized to put them on your website.
Fantastic.
And the other thing is this: if anybody thinks I'm not an MD, okay, I've got a reasonable brain, but I'm not an MD. I know how to research, but I'm not perfect. And if somebody sees something I've missed or I've done wrong, I want you to call me on it, and call me on it immediately.
Well, I want to share some things that might help improve the efficacy of your treatment and maybe reduce some of those medications you're on and get even better results. And I want to share some things with you um, through my study and the things that I've done that you might find really helpful.
Well, I'd like to bring my principal oncologist in too, because
Yes.
she goes to China every year to study
Yes.
alternative medicine. And she's a
100%.
superstar.
I would love to share this. Now that I've got a published case study, I'm able to share it with MDs and they'll look at it. When I was telling them about the things I was doing prior to that, they look at me, shook their head, and said, "I don't know about that. All I know is my standard of care." And now they have to read it because it's in a published medical journal and peer reviewed and the whole deal. And you can't deny it. I don't know if you're able to see my camera, but I used to have this giant tumor sticking out of my neck. And when I send you the case study, there's a photo journal of 40 days of this as it was going away. And no surgery, no radiation, and chemo, and a bunch of other things I did. And this is head and neck squamous cell carcinoma, stage 4A. And it's very unlikely that this happened the way it did. They don't know what to say.
Well, let me give you an example about the multidisciplinary thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you two. First off, there's a 2016 systemic review by Philly, Pillay and colleagues. And that report's been cited by 762 subsequent articles. Okay. And that between 4 and 45% of patients who, after meeting with their multidisciplinary team, experience changes in their diagnosis.
It's not surprising at all.
No, it's not. So I had this problem with my back was just killing me. I'm a golfer. I had a +2 handicap before this started, and I couldn't swing a golf club. This started on January of last year. We did an MRI at the end of January, and I've had so many tests. So you've had them all too.
Oh, yeah.
And when they don't talk to you about anything, that means there's nothing there.
Right.
Okay, well, in May, I'm in such pain that another doctor sent me to the ER immediately.
Wow.
To get it taken care of. And so they put me on a nice little steroid, and they didn't read my medical history. They didn't read the risk factors of that steroid. They didn't call my principal oncologist, who's supposed to be called if anything happens. I wear a road ID bracelet and has all my medical history and the doctor's phone numbers. It's also in the medical records at that hospital. And they didn't read any of it. And so they put me on prednisone, a high dose of it. and I was
Wow.
comatose a day later. And went into ketoacidosis, almost died.
Oh my God.
Okay, well, persons over the age of 70 shouldn't be taking that medicine unless they're very closely monitored. I live by myself with my two golden retrievers. And the next thing is,
They're a
if you're
handful,
on,
aren't they?
yeah, and if you're on chemo, you're not supposed to be doing it either because there's high comorbidities. And then when I was taking, my daughters couldn't get me on the phone. They finally got somebody to come over and see me. They said I wasn't making any sense. So they, took me to the ER, the same ER that had written the prescription. They couldn't figure out what had caused the problem, and they couldn't figure it out at all. And they flew me to another hospital, and they all said I had dysphagia and dementia, possibly, and amnesia.
Whoa.
And guess what? I mean, I ended up with a tier 1 neurologist, and he said, zero chance of any form of dementia. I went through all these tests. I was just, I drove him crazy because I was doing the math faster than he could do it. And no dysphagia, no amnesia, no nothing. He said it was a multi-factor drug interaction problem that caused everything.
Wow.
And that's because somebody didn't read.
Yeah. And you
Well,
got to think how many times a year does that happen where people don't survive?
it happens every day.
It happens all the time. I know.
I mean, and it's, nobody's studied it yet, is what's the number of people who've died from cancer because of a multi-factor drug interaction problem.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, we're called polypharmas because we have to take so many meds.
Right.
Well, how do you know what's going to happen?
Exactly.
So, I mean, but the point is
Each time you add one to it, it makes it more risky.
right. And so I'm going to be meeting with the president of the hospital next week because they should at least be responsible for reading what's in the report.
Yes.
And the cover page on every patient, they've got on the right-hand side, they've got their conditions that could cause a problem, and the medicine I was given to take. The top three medical conditions I have are comorbidity issue. So I'm lucky that I was in good enough shape because I recovered extremely well very quickly. But there's got to be accountability for that.
I couldn't agree more. Glenn, we have gone a third longer than I normally do, and I didn't want to cut the conversation, but we're at a point where I kind of need to. I love the work you're doing. You have the right approach. You're helping people. I definitely want to continue this conversation. And I know you kind of did leave people with a central thought, but I'd like you to kind of go back to that and really kind of put a spotlight on that thought.
So here's the draft of the cover of the new book, More Than Hope, the compelling promise of integrated cancer care teams. And it'll be out in 1st of April. And
Nice.
my existing book is called Cancer Set Me Free. And there's a lot of messages there because when I quit working to help everybody else and looked at myself and said, what they teach in the Army is if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your troops.
It's
So
true.
I've started doing that better. And so I celebrate life every day and try to put a smile on somebody's face.
I love it. I love it. Well, this is such an inspiration, and the wisdom you carry is worth sharing. That's for sure. And how do people find your book? Or you got a website, or how can somebody get hold of you?
It's Glenn, Glenn, Sturm, STRM.com, glennsturm.com. And, it's, you can drop me notes there and they get to me quickly. And, if somebody really wants to talk about something, it's very easy to get my phone number online. And so just feel free to call. So, I mean, the whole thing to me is my whole life today is about helping other people's lives.
I love it. I love it. Well, You're definitely an inspiration. I really want to thank you for joining us today. And again, I would love to revisit this when your new book comes out and get back into it.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend.
Beautiful. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and I want to thank all of our listeners who make this show possible. And we will see you next time. This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.